You're listening to All My Friends Are Ghosts, a long-form narrative drama told in 14 parts. Episode 9, The Funeral. They arrived in Louisiana late in the afternoon of the day before the funeral. Given the spoils of East Texas's sprawling skies, where sheets of pure white sun pierce dreamlike navy blue plumes that loom heavy over its never-ending, almost biblical, miles and miles of highway construction projects, the flat, steamy town of Vinton would have been just another rest stop. Any other border town. But Vinton meant family, history, a connection with something neither of them had felt for years, until they stepped out onto the stone and shell drive at their grandmother's house, walked through the carport to the side door, opened it, and smelled the stale, familiar air of the house where they'd spent so many Christmases and summers. Their Uncle Jim and his second wife, Chris, now lived in the house, which was full of relations the boys knew, and many they didn't, but who seemed to know them. Their arrival was met with some fanfare and offers of soda pop and jambalaya and gumbo and potato salad and smoked boudin, and when Simon was embraced with enthusiastic arms by all three of his great-aunt Ellender's sons, he couldn't help but imagine how impossible it would have been for him to act that way when his own mother died. Upon further thought, it wasn't entirely impossible to grasp, save for one of her sons. Her oldest boy was, in the most fair and sensitive estimation, what people in town would refer to as touched, having almost certainly suffered some kind of brain trauma as a child. Her second-born was now, and for as far back as either Peter or Simon could recall, a completely drug-addled pseudo-hippie burnout type, who would, later in the evening, attempt to borrow money from both of them. Her youngest son was the outlier, who presented as a slick lawyer-looking type. He was known to wear expensive blue jeans with sport coats, and had a small, respectable silver ponytail. Every time he caught a glimpse of the youngest son smiling and laughing in the middle of someone's storytelling, Simon wished there was someone there with an intimate knowledge of Ellender, who he could trust to give an honest estimation of her sons. Being so composed after losing someone so dear to you only seemed to make sense if you were in full flight from reality, he thought. Everyone was just socializing and laughing and shoving chocolates in their mouths in mournful celebration.
Oh, this is all so totally un-Baptist.
After being separated for about half an hour, the brothers made their way across the crowded living room to one another, and Peter grabbed Simon's arm.
Oh my God, dude. Don't get away from me again. These people are insane.
And so boring.
They both looked back up at the crowd of people looming in all directions, then refocused on one another.
We have to get the hell out of here.
Dude, I don't know what you're talking about. A woman who looks like Dracula just called me sweetheart. This is so cool.
Oh my God. Are you talking about Aunt Pat?
Yeah, totally. She's actually really cool, like, jokes aside.
You boys remember Chris, right?
Oh, of course. Aunt Chris.
Hi.
How are you?
Again.
Yes, Simon was telling me you're both living out in San Francisco now.
Oh, yes. Wendy and I took the boys out there, 4 years ago now. And Simon's been there for,
10.
Yeah, about 10 years, yeah.
Oh, okay. And you like it there?
I'm sorry?
You like living in San Francisco?
Oh, yes. Very much. It's,
Yeah, it wasn't like a condition of our parole or something.
Pardon?
Oh, I just mean that we have choice as to where we live, and we are purposefully choosing to live there, yes.
We do like it, yes. It's, beautiful weather, and the ocean, I mean, it's just, like, right there. Lots of parks and stuff. It's so walkable.
Simon turned his body toward his brother and placed a hand on his shoulder.
You all right?
Yes, of course.
Well, all right. You boys have a nice night. Thank you for making the trip.
Take care. Thanks. Food's great.
Right. Oreo pie? Is that what this is?
Well, he's out back when you're ready.
Behind the house, the brothers traced the sidewalk their grandfather had poured, searching for the handprints they'd left there in the early 80s. The yard was a patchwork of spiky green stalks of grass, small hills of sand, and little gray pyramids of mud piled up by crawdads. A small hand-shaped indentation with PC inscribed above it lay just before a slightly smaller one marked SC, a few feet from the open barn house doors of the workshop. Off-yellow light poured out, illuminating other impressions from other grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and in the graying dusk, the yard was intermittently aflash with fireflies, as were the surrounding yards, which all joined in the grass alleyway behind the shed. They both stood there watching all that life, all that memory, a surplus of thought that had been waiting there for them. The sound of crickets and far-off dogs, a wreath of gnats and moths in motion around the security light above them, and the moist air just clinging to their bodies in a brief moment of dusk that felt like forever. They had never seen the plain white shed that housed every tool their grandfather had ever owned aglow in the early night like that, let alone with it seemingly so alive with music. As they crossed into the doorway, they saw the shabby form of a man, at first with his back to them, hunched over a drawing board. When Peter tapped his knuckles against the ancient refrigerator just inside the doorway, the man leaned forward and blew out a sharp breath, sweeping away flecks of pencil eraser from the paper in front of him, dropped his implements, stood, and turned to face them.
Hey, Dad.
The next day, the brothers sat hands in lap, shoulder to shoulder, with men and boys whom they'd never really known, as the Reverend droned on.
You see, a life is not meant to be lived for one's own self, but rather to be spent in the presence of God and for the benefit of others. And now, our beloved Eleanor is truly in the presence of our Lord.
The stuffy room was an empty canvas, filled hastily with dusty-looking fake flower arrangements. The endless speeches and readings, the weeping relatives. Ellander's youngest grandson played what he said was her favorite song about angels on an acoustic guitar, and everyone began sobbing uncontrollably. Near the end, the Reverend said that everyone should turn to the person behind them, or in front of them, or to their left or right and hug that person and tell them they love them, even if they didn't know them. Especially if they didn't know them. And suddenly the boys were under the sway of that group think, feeling everything the herd was feeling. And in the midst of a heavy, heavy Xanax buzz beginning to kick in, Simon began to cry, a dizzying, tiring sort of cry that lasted the rest of the service. As Peter turned to his brother and took his hand, Simon realized, through those sad waves of pain boiling up from his core, that he was losing it over much more than the woman in the casket whom he'd hardly known, or the family members' speeches, or even the foreignness of seeing his brother in teary formal wear. He realized he was crying for the tragedy of man himself, some unknowable thing he hadn't expected. What is now vibrant, brimming with enthusiasm, wailing over lost love, reminiscing, clawing at some dream of a life, embarking upon whatever perceived adventure just ends up being yet another boring life choice, will inevitably, to a man, wind up this motionless, oblique shell of a person, empty and incomplete, to be mourned over, or forgotten, or celebrated, but never again to be alive. They would stay until after she was gone, having been carried off by her 3 sons and a few other men to the smaller private burial ceremony. They spoke with scores of people who somehow still recognized them after all that age and distance.
All right, how the hell do all these people still know us? I literally recognize none of them.
Pretty sure it's all they have.
That was it. No elaboration. And yet Simon felt it deeply and knew it to be true. And so, despite his naturally antisocial tendencies, he forced himself to beam a sympathetic smile into the eyes of every strange face that approached until the room emptied, knowing they were all going home to not much else and no one to really talk to about anything. The men and older boys and several women all reconvened to the home where Ellender had spent the last 40 years of her life. They approached the property, Peter driving from memory, and with the headlights off, he let the moon illuminate their path on the sun-bleached shell drive up to the carport. When they got out of the car, Simon suddenly remembered Uncle Jack, Ellender's husband, showing him around the property when the boys were young.
Oh my god, this was the old guy with all the messed up fingers.
Uncle Jack.
Uncle Jack, yes! God, we thought he was a mutant.
Jesus, dude. Chill.
Oh my god, I just remember he was essentially gave me a tour of where he'd cut off like each one of his fingertips when I was 9 or something.
These are hard-working people, city boy.
They followed the sound of music and the guffawing of their great-aunt Ellender's least socially attuned son, Richard, around to the back of the porch where everyone sat, beer in hand, except for the lumbering oaf of a man who stood at the edge of the concrete slab with a childlike excitement in his face as he absorbed the conversations going on around him. At every momentary silence, he would either burst into thunderous laughter or call out to Peter and Simon's father, who, upon their arrival, was seated at a folding table sorting through a milk crate full of LPs and nursing a mason jar full of straight silver tequila. Simon approached the group somewhat sheepishly, but was quickly ushered forth by hands and even a couple kicks from the now half-drunk distant relatives who'd been teary-eyed and speaking in hushed tones an hour before. They shoved drinks into the boys' hands and welcomed them warmly, insisting they consume ungodly amounts of ham, yeast rolls, and potato salad. After maybe half an hour, 2 beers, and a whiskey and soda, Simon found himself navigating the house in search of a bathroom. Stepping over stacks of newspapers and magazines, hat boxes spilling over with bills and letters, he found himself in a cramped closet-like washroom, staring into the mirror, talking into his phone about the people on the porch, the house, the moonlight through the window.
Landscape.
He was mid-dictation when the voice of his uncle's new wife broke in abruptly.
Kind of thing where come on, just
honey.
a minute.
You can't piss in the yard like the rest of them.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I got lost in the sauce there for a sec.
Oh, did ya? For a sec.
He was back at the picnic table just outside the house for maybe 5 minutes, deep in reverie about his encounters with Chris. He wondered what it was she saw in him that raised her hackles. He started to recount the brief moments of eye contact from across the room back at his uncle's house, the snide remarks at the funeral home just before the service. He was mulling over a number of witty retorts when, in a sudden lull in the conversations around him, the wife of a cousin said,
"You know, it'd be nice is some grass."
Seriously?
Simon spent a moment glancing from face to face as the entire gathering now focused solely on him. Then he produced a cigarette case from his jacket pocket and began to extol the virtues of its contents.
300 times magnification or something, so they can see all the little flecks of mold or spider mites or whatever kind of problems the buds might have. And this weed in particular is called South Island skunk, and they all come with a label, like how you'd see on a bag of chips or a soda or something, and it shows the breakdown of cannabinoids and stuff.
Are you gonna talk about it, or are we gonna smoke it?
That's fair.
The group slowly circulated the 2 joints Simon provided, and as that funny, frenetic energy of a new mood settled in, Ellender's grandson stepped toward the center of the porch, and appeared to be raising his glass to propose a toast. In the coalescence of many small moments of silence, all coming together to form something larger than themselves, the young man spoke.
I don't know what my life would be like without those 3 brothers. When I was coming up, it was all I could do to see my dad sometimes. We didn't have a lot, but we had each other. Us. We had us. All them cousins, they all had each other, but we just had us.
Some in the group started to subtly squirm in discomfort, not knowing where the man's story was leading. Simon jabbed his brother in the ribs with his elbow, and when Peter turned to him, they exchanged a look of terror, then stifled a laugh.
I was raised the son of 3 brothers. Old Tommy, well, you know his ways.
Everyone looked around for the son Simon referred to as the tie-dyed sheep of the family, but he wasn't within sight.
He's probably hunting mushrooms in the pasture already. You can't hunt him until morning, Uncle Tommy. My daddy.
He looked over at his father, who sat hands in lap in a nice tailored suit next to his new wife.
My daddy did what he could. I guess you could say he just did what he needed to do. Or what I needed him to do. Uncle Richard, well...
What? You ain't got to give me no hard time, young man.
No, Uncle Richard, I ain't fixing to do that. The truth of it is, I'm the son of 3 brothers. All my life, when one of them brothers sat down, another one stood up. When my daddy couldn't be here, Uncle Richard was a bright spot in my life. In all our lives. A source of inspiration. And where he had his faults, Tommy stepped in and gave me imagination and showed me how to think in a different way and stop worrying so much about every damn thing. When Grandpa Jack took pneumonia...
The woods were growing louder now that the music had stopped, and Simon and Peter sat next to their father for the first time in years, just listening to the man's story. They listened to him describe how each of the 3 brothers reacted when their father got sick and died suddenly 12 winters before. And they listened as he spoke about Ellender's strength and will being buoyed by her love for the 3 brothers. He talked about how he wouldn't be the man he was, the man who himself had raised 3 children, if it hadn't been for those 3 brothers. And then he raised his glass to them, and the rest of the group raised theirs, and they all drank to the 3 brothers and to the woman who had raised them. The long talks and bursts of laughter continued into the early morning under the corrugated aluminum carport, the joyous and angular sounds playing off the sporadic electric jolts from the bug zapper and bouncing out through the yard, the woods, out into wherever there were ears, or not. The morning after the service was damp and gray-skied, and everything was green and moist and fresh-looking. And as Peter stood there in boxer shorts and an A shirt in the bathroom at the front of the house, he held the curtain open, surveying the view of the yards outside, realizing it was nothing at all like the drought-stricken city they'd left 5 days before. As he walked into the kitchen, Simon was mid-sentence.
Everything there is just brown and crispy and ready to burst into flames at any moment.
Yeah.
Peter stopped in the doorway to the kitchen, at his brother's back, realizing he was in the middle of the first conversation he'd had with their father in years, and before either of the two could look up from their sausage and eggs, he backed out of the room and walked down the hall and waited there until his brother came looking for him.
Are you seriously not up yet?
No. I guess I'm running behind. I'm just, I don't know, I'm a little hungover.
Yeah, no doubt.
Simon stood leaning, a hand on either side of the doorway.
Okay, new rule. Southern comfort is the most disgusting thing on earth.
That's not a rule, Simon.
Okay, well, we can either mince words all morning or we can rally.
He produced a half-pint bottle of bourbon from his back pocket and tossed it on the bed. Peter grabbed it and tossed it back, throwing the covers to one side and sitting up.
Jesus. Oh, God, no. Also, it's not a rule. It's more of a truism.
Okay, new truism. Whatever I said about the gross crap a minute ago. Come on, there's sausage and, aren't you behind schedule on whatever obsessive-compulsive morning routine you've got for yourself anyway?
Peter stood and lunged, causing his brother to flinch dramatically and flee back down the hallway. He closed the door, got dressed, and was gathering his bags when there was a slight knocking on the door.
Damn it, you idiot. I'm on my way.
Hey, bud. Wanted to see if you felt like staying another day to catch up some more.
Oh.
Peter turned and continued gathering his things, took his suit from the closet, and laid it on the bed.
Yeah, I don't know. We're sort of in the middle of something here. I feel like we've got to keep on our scheduled path.
Yeah, your brother, he told me about the trip, about your mom.
The man's tone was subdued, with hints of melancholy, which seemed out of character. Peter read it as him attempting to be comforting while remaining detached. It was foreign, considering the source.
Okay. Well, then, we have a tea.
Listen, son,
As he stepped into the room, Peter backed away, trying to busy himself with anything at hand.
Look, I'm not sure what you're still doing here.
I just want to talk. I'm not trying to put my nose in anything.
No, here. Why are you still here? It's been 3 years, Dad, and...
As his eyes welled up, reddening and painful, he realized he was on the verge of breaking a promise he'd made to himself long before they started the trip. So he coughed hard and choked it all back.
Just talk to Simon. If Simon wants to stay, we'll stay another day. Now just give me a minute to finish what I'm doing, and I'll meet you guys out back where I assume you'll both be getting drunk at 9 a.m. and telling stories about your favorite bands or whatever.
He stood there, fruitlessly shifting his hands around the clothes and bags on the bed, fidgeting lightly until he heard the door click closed behind him. And then he leaned forward, straight-armed, pressing his fists into the mattress, and it took everything he had in him not to lose it. The emotional baggage of a family in constant flux coursed through his body in throbbing, thunderous volleys, like some poison tide rolling in and out. Every moment, all together, before him at once. The only salvation was complete control. Nothing inside of him, no part, humored any other possibility. Complete control. He stood there, pressing his fists downward as the agonizing wash of emotion slowed and decreased in strength. Eventually, he felt the white heat of that unexercised energy migrate through his upper body, shoulders, neck, and face, and then settle, densely, behind his eyes and ears. He tried to imagine a calm pond, completely still, with a single duck effortlessly floating in serene suspension on its surface. Trying with everything he had to forget the chaotic chopping of legs that lie just beneath the water.
Nostalgia. What an evil concept when you think about it. Just a smell or a sound or a word can take me back, and I'm just begging to be there and to be young again. I still can't meet anyone with a gap in their front teeth without this Pavlovian response that leaves me yearning to be 6 again, splayed out on the living room floor watching Letterman with Dad after having begged you to let me stay up late. I can still smell the orange shag carpet and remember the weird zapping noise that old TV made when you turned it off. I can literally smell the carpet. When it gets really crisp and cold in the city in July and I'm coming out of a bar and the night is rich and dark with that frigid air and it stings my nostrils, I'm immediately right back there on 37th Street in Austin in that absurdly overboard display of Christmas lights, running around with Peter and laughing and never wanting it to end. That longing is so powerful. I don't know what else could compare. I remember the first time I felt that dizzying bubble of opioid intoxication in my junior year of high school. Peter and I both cracked open a capsule of codeine from Mexico and emptied its contents into a beer. That warm buzz, the sense of disconnection from all worry. No wonder people chase it to their death. I don't want to let it go. I know it's only human. I know it's only natural, but I don't want to let it go. I want to crawl inside my memories and never leave. I want to wrap myself in all of it and just stay there. I don't want to come out, and I don't want to look at things the way they really are now.
All My Friends Are Ghosts is written and directed by Blake Cormier. Starring Blake Cormier as Simon, Joe Barton as Peter, Ian Samuel as the father, and Lauren Seal as the narrator. With additional voices by Craig Zimmern, Bit Blair, Leslie Seal, Joey McCarter, Jerry Cormier, and Zach Dunlap. Original music and sound design by Blake Cormier. More information about the production and all songs used in the show can be found at adoredbymillions.com.